Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for January 4, 2018. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Kammer.
Here.
Carbonaro.
Still here?
Deyne.
Yes, here.
Cabrera.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Ranky.
Here.
President Wallace.
Here. First item on our agenda this evening is under Planning and Zoning Committee Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. There's two items on our committee tonight. The first item is the southwest corner of West Lake Street and Route 59, the rezoning and annexation. The Village of Bartlett is requesting the following: the annexation of the east lot and the rezoning of the east lot, 3.6 acres, and they want to rezone it from the ER1 estate residence to the B4 community shopping zoning district. With that, Mr. Plonzinski, can you add anything to that?
Thank you, Trustee Hopkins. The map shows the location of this property. The parcels were purchased back a number of years ago when the village was entertaining a retail shopping center development at this intersection, and the village created a TIF district back then. Because of the timing of the development and the lack of them moving forward, the east parcel was never annexed. It was purchased along with the west parcel, and that subsequent development went by the wayside. There was two other additional developments that were proposed at this location. Neither of them went and became obviously built or went through any further rezonings on the site. And what we've done recently is that the village, because this is in the TIF district and time is running on the TIF district, the village has hired a consultant to do marketing of these properties. And SVN was here. You remember they were hired back a couple of months ago. And the staff believed that this would be a good opportunity to not only move forward with the zoning, but also to annex the property so that if there is a successful marketing effort and they've got a sale, the property will be zoned and annexed and available for commercial development. So that's the sum and substance of it. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I just want to ask Jim, do you think that this would improve the potential of selling that property?
I don't think it'll hurt it, but if the fact that the broker felt that the uses that they're marketing for are more commercial-like uses, so that it'll, rather than a developer going through it at the time of buying under contract, they'll buy it with that zoning in place. So it won't hurt it, and I think it'll help, because you'll have the other property, the east property particularly, will already be annexed into the village, which takes some time to do. So I think it's a positive for it.
And as far as an economic standpoint, we would rather have it a community shopping district than a residential, correct?
That's our land use plan and our preference, correct?
Jim, I think I know the answer to this already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any way that we could get another entrance off of Lake Street other than the one into that property? You know what I'm saying? We have the one entrance that comes in and the drive down, but for a car dealership or something like that, or whatever would be in there, it's kind of a roundabout way to get into it without having a direct access off of Lake Street. I'm just wondering, is that possible even?
The quick answer will be no. Yeah. We just recently took over that little curved frontage road IDOT dedicated to us, and there's in what is it, about 2 weeks, we're going to a pre-construction hearing for the intersection improvements of that, 59 and Lake Street. That is the designated connection and first access point west of other than, you know, the ramps. So they won't allow any more access points. Could be improved with the light, maybe in the future, but not another access.
When that property was looked at for a shopping center and some other uses, it not only included that property and the property west of that, but also south of that. So you see the B4, I think it went all the way down to the ER1, which was owned by the Long family. And that's where IDOT was talking about there being another entrance and then a road system or a private road system through there that would connect up, so there'd be a second access that way. In our previous discussions with IDOT, they wouldn't let it be much closer up toward the Route 20 intersection than about that far back, just past that B4, I think it was.
Any other questions?
No? I guess that's it.
We'll forward this on to the Plan Commission, and they can conduct the required public hearing.
Thank you.
The next item we have on our agenda is the Bartlett Commons Shopping Center Outlet Concept Plan. Before moving this on further, the applicant would like to have our input from the Village Board Committee. With that, can you give us a rundown, Jim?
Yes, thank you. Bartlett Commons Shopping Center is owned by Nico, who's in our audience today. And he has discussed with staff and with our technical staff the ability to do something similar to what was just recently done in the Home Depot outlot, which was creating that 8,000 square foot outlot. His development proposal is to create two outlets, and you're familiar with one in that it is right off of Stearns Road, and that's where the farmer's market currently occupies this space, right behind the BP. And he'd like to build a building there, which is, I can't remember, 7,600 square foot, and have a drive-through. And the other location, you don't really recognize it because it's a detention basin that's right here, so it's all a green space. And he would like to build another building right at the south entrance to the shopping center. This is the Nest Cafe, to put another retail space in that location over the detention basin and, provide obviously the parking and the drive-through for that facility. The detention basin would have to be compensated for not only, for filling over it, but also to provide any other stormwater requirement, because that is the basic area for stormwater for this development. There is some relief that he is asking for in terms of the parking for meeting our parking requirements, similar to the variance that was granted with the Home Depot outlet. I think he's adding 11 new spaces to the north side and then 10 land bank spaces. Our required parking is 5 per 1,000, and he was granted a 4.5 space per 1,000 variance back in 1989. It wasn't Nico, he was probably not even born then, but it was the previous owners. And then they would like to maintain that same kind of parking ratio. They would obviously have to meet the stormwater detention requirements, and then we'd want to do some more traffic analysis for this particular uses that would be added to it. There's currently 390 spaces on there, and we get into more detail analyzing it when we get into the uses. And he's here if you have any questions of him or me. And being a concept plan, he'd like to get kind of your feedback on it before he proceeds to a formal development proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Ponzinski. Is there any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The first thing I'd like to ask is the stormwater detention that would be lost. That's going under one of the existing buildings, isn't it? Would that be the one that's being constructed where the water detention is now?
They can answer that, but essentially, yes. That we have a number of underground stormwater.
Yeah, that's the same thing we did with the Tokyo restaurant.
The Nest or the Tokyo has it.
Right.
The Oberweis Shopping Center has it. Jewel has it.
Yeah.
A few others.
CVS has it as well, doesn't it?
CVS?
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember we've done that before. It's nothing unusual. I just want to get clarification on that. The concern that I have is with the, I don't have a problem maintaining the same parking ratio that you've already had, which was what, 4.5, is that correct? Jim, was that correct?
Yes, that's what it is from that old ordinance.
The concern that I have is that there's been talk about losing handicap parking places with this addition, and I'd like to know if there'd be any reduction in handicap parking.
Thanks. My name's Mike Anderson from Hager Engineering. I've been working with Nico on the site plan. We're conceptual at this point, so we haven't delineated where exactly the spaces are, but the intent is to comply with the code requirements for handicap parking. We're not asking for any reduction beyond what your code requires.
All right. Jim, offhand, do you know how many handicap parking places this current site would require?
Not totally. We use the Illinois Accessibility Code.
Yeah.
Generally, it's one space for 20-something of parking. So when you get up to 390, they might need, 15, 20 handicap spaces, and they'll be spread throughout all the different uses in the shopping center, but also we would require some to be in the areas where the new buildings would. So they'd have to comply, as they stated, with the state handicap
Now that
accessibility code.
That parking ratio, that's not really based on the use or the occupant.
No, it's more generic, actually.
Yeah, right.
We would have,
So
restaurants would be more specific in that. It's a more generic ratio.
if we add, if we add restaurants in that area, that would require additional parking. And we're at 4.5 now.
Well, how many parking spaces will we lose? Do we know that? Would you lose, not me?
Well, that's where I was going. I wanted to find out, have you talked to any prospective tenants? I know it probably is premature, but can you give the board some idea of what the occupants may be in those buildings? What you have in mind, what you foresee?
My name is Nico Scardino. We have talked to numerous amount of people. SVN is who we have hired, who we have been working with closely. And we've talked to a variety of interested parties, but no one has given us the commitment, only because the outlots are not available and they don't know what size square footage we're going to be able to work with. I mean, there was interest in talk with Panera Bread, that they at one point were looking across at the Home Depot, but now that the building that is being proposed to do, it eliminates the opportunity to go there and hopefully give us the opportunity to work with us. Some other people that he has worked with that he hasn't given me more defined, but some decent prospects, which I really don't want to mention any names at this point.
I'm concerned a little bit about the parking from the standpoint that obviously parking is at a premium right now and you're going to lose spaces. And I've heard residents that have complained that there's been towing going on of vehicles and everything else because of apparently the parking spaces are so prime that you as the owner had to tow vehicles in order to open up spaces for other restaurants, as far as what I've heard. So now if we lose parking spaces, how does that affect the businesses that are in your shopping plaza?
Well, the reserved parking spaces that happened, which you're talking about, was an event that Murray from Bannerman's had, and there were designated spots that were allocated for the barbecue restaurant at that time, and it specifically says on there, that those spots are reserved for the barbecue restaurant. So if people are going to park there, it's just kind of like a handicap spot. Why would someone come and, either tow or ticket a vehicle if people are being warned ahead of time?
Even late at night when other businesses are closed?
Is there a time restraint on handicap spots?
Well,
It's a different thing than a handicap spot,
I would think it would just be being a good neighbor.
right?
Oh, of course.
Is that part of the lease that you have with them?
With who?
with the, for example, you use Bannerman's, that's the example you used. Do you have, is that part of their lease that they have designated parking places?
No, they don't have designated parking spaces, but designated parking spaces were made for the barbecue space at the time when it was open.
Okay, help me out. Who put those signs up then?
I did.
Oh, okay. And is that part of, I don't understand how they can mark off parking like that in a strip shopping center and then tow the cars. I don't understand that.
Well, what happens is when Murray had his events, people were parking, obviously filling up the entire parking space, not allowing people who were coming to dine at our restaurant not come at all.
But isn't that a good thing, that you have businesses coming to your strip shopping center and frequenting?
And your location was closed at the time.
It was open at the time when that happened.
I got calls from several residents, Nico, several. And they said, I just got my car towed and,
I can give you the actual data from the tow company that was done. Now, anything that happens afterwards, no phone call was made for it, only during the time of the hours of operation.
I just think that, I think the board is making a good point. If we're going to be, it's kind of ironic that we're talking about a parking lot, a parking variance, when I personally have had several complaints about being towed out of that lot, which tells me that there's not enough parking already.
Right. Well, if this is where we're to go, there's not going to be any reserved parking spaces anymore after that.
Well, that's something that you'll have to address if this moves on to the Plan Commission, because I know that they have issues with that. And what I would like to avoid, you know, speaking of the parking, you have 4.5 now. What do we have by the Savory? What's the parking ratio there? I know I'm asking these things. You didn't do any research on it, but do you want to take a wild guess at it?
I don't know the ratio. I don't think they got any variances, so they
I don't
would be
believe
the
so either.
5%.
When that, I don't remember that. I agree with you. I don't remember that happening when they went in. But I can tell you that that parking lot right now, they have a number of restaurants in there, and it is, you know, it's filled. We tried to get into Wheaties the other day, and we had it parked down by Dr. Gurban's office and walk down to Wheaties, which isn't a bad thing. I love seeing the businesses prosper in this village.
It's good for your heart, too.
I need a little help. Accused of not having a heart, though. But
I just,
also, I'm sorry, one last thing. The farmer's market has occupied that one area on the south section of the lot for some time. That she'll be gone now, right?
Yeah, it's already gone.
Yeah, well, obviously.
We, as the farmer's market's concerned, we've already spoken to them about this possibility and are prepared to help them relocate if need be.
Do you have anything in mind?
There's a few places in mind, yeah.
Okay.
I also have the same concerns that some other board members have with parking. Obviously, I'll wait for the traffic analysis to be done and find out how that turns out. When this comes back before us, could I get an overlay of actually how much space the farmer's market actually takes up and kind of compare it to whatever conceptual plan they have or any firm plans?
Yeah, we can do
They do
that.
have-
We have
Try to help me
the
visualize.
dimensions of the tents and all that, so we can do that.
That would kind of help me visualize kind of where the farmer's market is and how many parking places that currently takes up now. So, any other questions from the committee?
I have a question, and it does have to do with the traffic. So, a traffic study, I was not entirely satisfied with the answer about the traffic study when we were talking about the Home Depot outlots. And they did a traffic study of their parking lot and how it was going to affect the in and out within that parking lot. My concern more so is the traffic on 59 and Stearns, and adding two more potentially larger businesses makes me a little nervous, both in volume and in safety. So I wasn't entirely satisfied with the other answer. What are we as a village, going to do to ensure that these extra outlots, both with drive-throughs, so clearly they're trying to entice a drive-through type business, which will increase traffic and quick traffic. What are we going to do to ensure the safety of our residents in that already very busy parking lot, area?
Well, this, as it hasn't started yet, but you see some of the utility work for that whole intersection improvement where it's all going to be dual left turn lanes and on all four legs. That was a safety designed intersection improvement that IDOT and DuPage County felt was necessary to handle the existing traffic. The analysis that their traffic people are going to do and our consultant are going to analyze is that, as you stated, the additional traffic that these uses bring to it and how do they fit into that new circulation pattern, because that's what it's going to be designed to. And I don't have the answer. We have to wait and to see, but with the Home Depot outlet, they took into consideration the future improvements and how that was going to work into the design of that future IDOT improvement. And if it's going to be better or worse, IDOT tells us it's going to be better and safer, which is I'm convinced of that with the dual left turn lanes. Now, obviously, people have to navigate through that to meet the demand of these new businesses as well as safe movements in and out of the shopping center.
So they'll be able to you'll be able to consult with them, they'll be able to tell us, yes, based on the improvements we have made, it will be able to support this amount of new traffic?
Yes. IDOT has projected the intersection improvement is based on traffic projections from, I can't remember the exact year because it's been a couple of years, but it's based on traffic projections, existing traffic counts and projections for, I think, at least 20 years out. So it's going to be a big intersection improvement. We don't have it around here. You see it at Randall Road and Fabian is the closest example that I know of that type of design. So
I would also just want to mention, in regard to this development, we'll talk more about it, considering this is conceptual, but the difference in my estimation of the Home Depot outlots versus these outlots is in regard to parking spaces and traffic. There are several small businesses within that development. Small businesses that will likely or could likely be much more affected than a big box store like Home Depot. And I think it's the responsibility of this board to also take those into consideration when we're adding more stress to that particular area. And if it's a deterrent to bring people to that area, to those businesses, sacrificing those businesses to bring in two new businesses doesn't make sense to me. So I just want to put that, until we see how it plays out. Just want to make my comment.
Yeah, that's a point. That's a good point. And I don't think that Nico would want to have a really messy, traffic-y shopping mall either. So I think to our community director's point, the changes in that intersection are going to be relatively profound. I don't think, Nico's a smart guy, I don't think that he would be looking into making this expansion if he didn't think that it could handle the flow and has done some homework. But we certainly have some questions to answer. Yeah, so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one last question. The improvement at the intersection, I forgot, what's the timeline on that?
it's
2000 and never.
Yeah, thank you.
it's already started. You'll see.
I'm sorry, I just made an IDOT comment. I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
You'll see it ramp up in the spring.
Yeah.
All the utility work has preceded it, moving the different utilities. There will be more of that, and then construction's probably going to start.
You mean they're not going to move the utility box outside of CVS one more time?
I hope not.
No.
I think they're finished.
I think they're going to put it where the carts are now.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
All right, that's all we have under planning and zoning tonight.
Thanks for bringing the concept to us. Appreciate it. That's That's it for you, Chairman Hopkins?
Okay.
Final Committee of the Whole meeting, agenda item this evening is Finance and Golf Committee, Chairman Deyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only item we have on the agenda, it's for discussion only, is the standing committee structure change. And with that, let me just read this. The village president, Mr. Kevin Wallace, requested an evaluation of the standing committee structure of the village board of trustees. The cause of this review was a lack of items that fall under the building committee and the suggestion that it be combined with the planning and zoning committee. Should the board wish to combine these two committees, I don't know if that's Kevin or staff, but I would recommend breaking the Finance and Golf Committee into two standing committees. This will keep the number of standing committees at 6 and better distribute the workload of the trustees. So obviously, because we're dealing with the Golf and Finance, which I chair, I don't have any objection to this whatsoever, as long as I can have my pick of the two committees that remain.
In all seriousness, just for my comments to the board, I've been thinking about this for a year. I think all of us have. It's just a matter of the difference in our what's going on in our village now. And I brought it up to Paula, and she hastily agreed, or didn't agree with me. She never does, but she hastily got it on the agenda just so we could discuss it and open up the. So potentially this next year, which would be what, April 1? Is that when we're starting over again, or something like that? Yeah, we'd want it to coincide with the elections, I would guess. That way we can change the committees and change the committee chairs. Doesn't matter. So I'd like everybody's input.
Well, Kevin, I think, Mr. President, I think it does make sense because, Chairman Grabenia doesn't really have much work to do.
And Chairman Hopkins, his first 2 years.
And he's getting it all. And it's a split the workload up. It just makes sense to me. I don't know what other comments there might be, but.
Well, it does change every 2 years, right? So then somebody else just doesn't have something to do.
I think every year we change them up.
I thought it was every with the
Every 2
elections.
years?
Every 2 with the elections.
I'm going to change that up. No.
I think we got to think a little bit more about what each committee should be, maybe look at what other communities, because I go to a lot of meetings, and so I see other communities, and they have different titles, and
Okay.
it reflects the business of each board and community and the departments and things. So I don't know if we want to go with these proposed 6, but it
No.
makes sense to reshuffle the deck somewhat.
Yeah, and one of the things, just to give you some of my higher water thoughts, was to create, instead, we could leave finance and golf alone and create a new, because it's the buzzword now, Community Development Committee. And their primary objective would be to work directly with the Economic Development Commission and work on different items like that, progressing the TOD plan. That's just a thought. So why don't we bring some ideas back with, now that I know that the board is okay with talking about shuffling the deck, as Chairman Ranke mentioned. Let's bring back some ideas of structure, and we'll talk a little bit in between these next this next meeting, Madam Administrator, and we'll get some ideas put together.
That community development, that can incorporate things like the bike and, not be the bike and run committee, but incorporate that type of issue and, raise it up to our consciousness a little higher.
Right.
Makes sense.
All right.
Mr. President, that's all we have.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Deyne, seconded by Trustee Kammer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Kammer?
Yes.
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Deyne?
Yes.
Grabenia?
Yes.
Hopkins? Ranky?
Yes.
We are adjourned.